Okay, Jay, my very rough first draft for the back. Definitely need some recommendations. Absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look now. You got the PDF which I downloaded, and we'll take a look at that. But what I didn't see the front of of the poster, so can't really comment on adaptation. But we do have a couple of checkpoints, so we'll take a next week. We'll be taking a look at the front and the back of the poster. So, okay, so let's go ahead and take a look, shall we? All right. So I'm going to talk about typography, then I'm going to talk about concept and layout. Okay, typography. Okay, well, actually, boy, I'm going to be jumping around here a little bit, back and forth. So you might have to review this a couple of times the video. But anyways, all right. So the top margin is too small. Right now we're kind of top heavy on the piece. I think what we can do is take this whole configuration, move it down a little bit, not too much, but at least a little bit, just to increase the size of that top margin. Um, Other than that, I think that this is a good concept right here at the broken chain. That's good. It comes right from the front of the poster. That's interesting. Is that the same fist as the front of the poster? I think it is. Is it? If it's not, it should be definitely the same illustration of the fist. Um, Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at typography. One thing I want to mention though is see this frame around the image. I've got a really interesting technique for you to use as opposed to just framing this. Framing it boxes it, kind of puts it in a container, as opposed which separates it from the composition itself. So basically, what we do is let's remove this frame and then create another green box, the exact same size as the image, and then color it the color of this green from the typeface, the green that you've used, and then offset it a little bit. So place it right behind the image, then nudge it down and over to the right a little bit so we can see it and create a little bit of dimension and some depth. It's a really interesting technique, far superior to stroking images. Try it. I think you'll like it. All right, I'm going to zoom in here. Let's take a look at your typography. Watch your colors. I know sometimes PDF rendering mutes colors a little bit, so make sure your colors. This seems a little bit more drab than the front, so I just want to make sure that that the same colors, the same vibrancy are being used. This is difficult to tell. Watch it change the color when I change. See how it changes the second it changes just for a second. I don't know why it does that, but PDF just doesn't always render as beautifully as it should. Okay, let's go and take a look at your types. I would definitely recommend a drop cap in there. Maybe even a different color. The green seems to be a color that you're using. Drop cap, maybe 2 or 3 lines deep on that drop cap. Okay, boy, your rags are looking good. Little problem right here. That the should be dropped down. That's a widow. You don't want that. Let's just rectify that. Just take that the, drop it down to the next line. This is all covered in all the video tutorials located in the course announcements, though. So basically, what I'm looking for is no widows, no orphans, good rags, use of small caps instead of all caps, use of old style numerals or reducing the size of default numerals, um, and M dash N dash and hyphen correct usage there. Okay, so back to the task at hand. Also, do some research to find out what areas should be italicized. Okay, I would avoid hyphens, especially on a word like this. It's just really difficult to read anyway. So you throw a hyphen in there, and boy, there's just no way. It's almost impossible to pronounce that correctly. 1950, your numbers definitely either old style or just reduce the size a little bit. It's kind of hard. You may have already done it. It's really difficult to tell in this rendering, though. So be sure to take a look at that course announcement regarding old style. Old style numerals are preferable, but if your typeface doesn't have open type capabilities, you won't be able to access the uh, old style capability, or there won't be old style capabilities. So if there are, it'll be through the open type menu, and that doesn't always guarantee that they're going to be applicable, even though there is an open type menu associated with the given font. If that's the case, just reduce the type size by 20, 25% or so, and you'll be just fine. And I say 20, 25% very loosely. It's best to do it by eye. And what you want to do is have the typeface correspond nicely to the ascenders and the X height of the default type. Numbers come out just too big. Okay. Let's see, ANC, perfect opportunity right there to use small caps instead of all caps. Okay, looking good, looking good. It's a widow. A widow is a word sitting on a line alone. You want to avoid that at all costs. It's the first thing that hiring professionals and portfolio reviewers look at is orphans and widows. Definitely don't want to adjust that out. Again, that's covered in the course announcements. Okay. Oh, technically that's a widow too, because there's only one word on that type. You got the hyphen there. I wouldn't even use hyphens. I would turn my hyphens off. Okay, this rags here, let me see. Rags are great. Rags are very good here. That's a little bit short, that line. You should rectify that. That should be rectified quite nicely by just dropping the word LED to the next line. Drop that, will take care of that widow. Forget that, adjust that hyphen out, and then you'll have to recompose the rags here, likely. These rags are a little problematic. See that angle right there? Don't want that. Don't want that. Again, covered in the course announcements video tutorials. Let's take a look at the timeline itself. I think the timeline is interesting because you borrowed pieces from the front to assemble the timeline on the back. Now, one of the things I'm seeing here is that you're using a different color for the year and the typeface. Boy, I don't know. I mean, it's not bad, but I just think it's a little chaotic. Maybe indicate some emphasis if you want to, right? Like, it looks like you're using black to emphasize the year, right? But my recommendation is just to maybe set it in green, but use bold. I think that might be the best. This kind of a black transition to green just to me seems a little bit chaotic. So think about that. In some of your timeline entries, you're using periods, and others you're not. You got to be very consistent there. Technically, that's a widow. That's a widow. Okay, don't forget all small caps along with your numbers, old style or reduction. Okay, other than that, I think we're looking pretty good. I hope I've given you enough here, some good ideas. So I think it would be a good idea. Remember that script face, that kind of handwritten face that you use for the tagline on the front? I think it would be interesting to use the same typeface here as at Father of a Nation. I don't think that really needs to be in quotes too, because it's out of context. So it's not, theoretically, it's not a quote, right? Because it's out of context. So I would remove the quotations. Other than that, I think we're looking pretty darn good. Let me check one more thing here. Little bit off balance. That's a really, really wide right margin, and the left margin is minuscule. So you want to adjust that accordingly. Maybe move this whole configuration over to the right a little bit, and then maybe move this over to the right a little bit. I think your gutter is a little too wide as well. That's the space between your paragraphs. Okay, I think I've given you enough to think about here, Jay. I'll tell you what, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if I can provide any clarifications, of course, I'll be more than glad to do so. Just let me know. Say the word and I'm on it. All right, great start, Jay. Again, any questions, get with me. Thanks, man.